The black one, is that where it should be?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll be visible if.
If I face that way or this?
Facing that way.
Facing that way.
If that's too close to them, I can push you back some. I can remove that table. If you want not to be up in their faces,
No,
you sure?
it's fine, yeah,
Yeah?
no,
Okay.
whatever's easy.
So it is 6:27. I got a few more minutes.
Yeah, hold on, as long as you can. Hold
I
on.
will hold up. We can muster a quorum here.
No, for me to sign in.
Oh.
It's the only webinar, here we go.
Unusual guy. I don't know. You have a deep. Yep. You ever seen his band? He's got a great band.
Now, how do I vote? How do I put feedback?
Mute yourself.
I'm trying to mute myself. It's not muting. Oh, here we go.
We're fine.
I'm gonna mute the computer. All right.
Okay, sounds good. We'll wait for you. Wait on you, no problem.
Who's coming?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right, bye. James will be here shortly.
Oh, boy. There you are.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
we're
I'm
wonderful.
All right.
All right,
Happy holiday. Sorry I can't be there in person.
no problem. No problem. One at 6:29. I don't expect anyone else, but
Tricia.
we'll hang just for a second. Make it, Lakeisha.
Lakeisha can't make it. We hear.
Nope. You got Mr. Fleming's contact information.
Who's?
Mr. Fleming's.
I do not.
Oh, I do.
Probably should, but I don't.
Okay, so. Did you like your horse? Okay, 4 feet or.
You think? I'd rather them give me. And this is streaming.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, may I speak to Charles, please? Hey, how's it going? Yeah, this is Bill from the board. Are you going to be able to log in tonight? Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay, take it easy. Okay, Mr. Fleming will be logging in shortly. But given that it's a few minutes past time. I think we should get started. Welcome to the December meeting of the especially to our guests. The time is 6:32. Are there any announcements for the good of the group here? I have one sad announcement, and that is that Susan Krischel was a relatively new member of the board, just came on in May, has had to resign because of a health issue. And so we have sent her some flowers, and we're sort of keeping in contact with her as she works through this difficult time. We do have spoken to individuals who have expressed interest in being involved with the board. And so things will be moving forward. If anyone on the board has any suggestions as to individuals who would be interested and would have time, that would be wonderful. Please let me or Inez know. Just to remind you, the decision as to who gets on the board is made by the city council and not by us. And so if we want to have an impact, it's important that we express our preferences and say, hey, this person is good, and, you know, please consider them. So the next item here is the approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any amendments or comments or questions about the agenda? I don't. Okay. What I'm going to do tonight is something that is allowed by Robert's Rules of Order, which is I'm going to ask for unanimous consent. And so I will say, if there are no objections, are there any objections to approval of the budget? Hearing no objections, the agenda. The agenda is approved. The next item is the approval of minutes that Executive Director Gonzalez put together for us. Are there any comments, amendments, questions about the agenda? Would there be any objection to approving, the minutes? Would there be any objection to approving the minutes as they are? Hearing none, minutes of the last November meeting are approved. And now we're going to hear from our guest speaker, Ashley Canali Matthews. She's going to tell us about the her activities as the director of the Central Virginia Community Justice. Welcome.
Thank you for having me today. I think PowerPoint is forthcoming. And I also have some brochures and papers up here for anyone who's here and wants to grab anything. So I'm Ashley Snelly Matthews. I'm one of the co-directors of Central Virginia Community Justice. We are a newer program in Charlottesville. We've been around for about almost a year and a half now, officially as our own independent program. And what we provide is restorative justice services. So those are, we started as a diversion program from the criminal legal system. So folks who've been charged with a crime can divert into our program and have an alternative way to resolve what happened, to make amends for what occurred, and to hear directly from the person or entity that they harmed about what would make that situation right and how to move forward in a more positive way. So right now we're working with Charlottesville and Albemarle. We receive referrals from both of those counties, from whether it's from the Commonwealth attorney, the prosecutor, from a defense attorney, or from community members or other individuals who are aware of the situation. Anyone can initiate the referral, but then everyone has to be on board. It's a fully voluntary program, has to be the wishes of the person who was charged as well as the person who was harmed to participate with us, and as well as their attorneys, and everybody has to be on board that this is how they want to resolve it instead. We'll go to the next slide.
I'm trying.
No worries. And so, we come to this work really from two different perspectives, and we really feel like it can be beneficial to all the parties. So on the one hand, we're thinking about folks who have been harmed by some sort of crime or situation of harm. And we know that a lot of time folks who've experienced trauma, one of the hardest things is not having control over what happened already and not having control over what's going to happen as a result of that incident. And so putting that control back into the hands of the people who've been harmed so they can say, this is what I need to heal. This is what will make me feel safer. This is what I think would be best for my community. We find aids in their healing and their ability to move forward from that trauma. And then we also likewise believe that this can be beneficial for the people who are responsible for the harm. It's hard work. It's not easy to sit across from someone whom you have harmed and let them tell you exactly how it impacted them and have to respond to that and answer their questions and speak for what you've done. But there's a lot of opportunity for growth there and for your own healing, as well as we look together with our folks who are responsible for harm to say, what was going on? What were the root causes? What was happening in your life that kind of brought the situation about, and what can we do to address those so that it's not likely to happen again? So we really hope and expect that our participants can all grow and be better off at the end of the process than at the beginning. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
suspect you're gonna deal with this. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, anytime.
You know, one of the things that we're finding as our organization is that we very much want to get the human connection between the people who are injured and the people who are, who have transgressed.
Mhm.
But there is such a complex legal environment
Yes.
that separates these people
Mhm.
that it's extremely hard to achieve that. If you got some formulas and approaches to.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for that
Okay.
question. Yeah, so we've worked really hard with all of the legal partners in this area to have, we have an MOU with all of them that we've all signed saying, what are the limits of confidentiality? What can be shared and not shared? What happens if a process begins, but for whatever reason can't continue in restorative justice, like if it needs to head back. So we have a lot of robust protections in there where anything that's shared with our program is confidential. We're not going to share it without either party, without both parties' consent. And the attorneys have agreed not to subpoena us or to try to, seek our records without that permission from our participants. And again, the attorneys have to sign off. So if there is a case that they don't feel comfortable diverting or potentially dismissing charges or reducing them, then it's not going to come to restorative justice, right? So it's really a voluntary, and we have to have the buy-in of everybody involved to move forward. But we do find that that opportunity to have that dialogue can be really powerful in helping people change. And so we've just been lucky in this community to have a lot of support from attorneys who are interested in letting people have that experience rather than the other.
Ashley, is it in lieu of prosecution?
Hold on a second.
I'm gonna ask you, hold the question, let her do her presentation because of the technical issues we're having right now. Hold your questions towards the end, please.
I can remember it.
Yeah, hold that thought. I will get to it for sure. Yeah, we can move forward because I think I've already covered our mission. So the differences between, and this might address what you just asked, traditional justice, criminal justice, compared to restorative justice. The legal system is concerned of like, what was the law that was broken, right? What code section in Virginia was violated? Who did it? And what punishment should they get? But if you look at those three questions, you notice that none of those questions have anything to do with the person who was harmed, right? It's just kind of all focused on the law and the person who committed the harm. If you're looking at restorative justice, what you'll find is that we're looking at what harm happened, who was impacted by it, right? And how can we repair that harm, right? How can we move forward? And so it's more focused on the needs and what actually happened. And it allows us to be a little more holistic and consider what really will help the folks who are involved in the situation. And so in terms of prosecution, yeah, so when people divert into our program, the attorneys agree ahead of time what's going to happen if restorative justice is successful. Oftentimes it's for a full dismissal of the charges. If the whole program is successful and the person does what they need to do, then they will dismiss. And there are other situations in which they say, well, we'll reduce it to XYZ, but they kind of work that out on the front end so that everybody knows going into it, here's what's going to happen if I kind of complete this whole process.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. We can go to the next. All right, so, how does restorative justice help everybody? And I've kind of already addressed this. It's important for the harm people to get to ask their questions, to know what happened and why, and, finding out what can be done to increase their feelings of safety. It's also important for people who have caused harm to be able to speak their truth and, to take ownership of their action, that there's some growth there for them as well. And then everybody is enveloped in a process that is guided by dignity for everyone, empathy, the dialogue that they can have together, and they can bring in supporters or other people to help, make the process successful and feel good for everyone. All right, I'm not going to read through these, but again, these are just some examples of the kinds of things we're talking about. So in a restorative process, first, everybody meets individually with the facilitators to prepare, to talk through these things, and to make sure they're in the right frame of mind to come together for a dialogue. So everything is explored and looked through individually. And then when everyone seems ready, the facilitators will bring people together to have that dialogue and to really talk through these different questions. What happened? How did it affect everyone? And what do we need to do to move forward? The next slide, if you guys will have access to it later, I'll make sure you guys get it if you are having trouble seeing it now. But this just kind of walks you through our process. As I said, there's always a groundwork portion that happens before we bring people together. So we want to make sure everybody is prepared, feels safe, and kind of is in a place to have a constructive dialogue that's going to lead to a likely successful outcome. So sometimes the groundwork might take a few days and sometimes it might take a few months, right? It just depends on what kind of situation we're dealing with, what's going on with the participants involved, their own needs. If people need help with, counseling, with housing, with other things before they're going to be in a place to have a constructive dialogue, we might need to help them with those things along the way as well and help connect them to other services. They come together for the dialogue, discuss all those things. And at the end of that dialogue, they're going to end up with an agreement, which is who, what, when, where, right? What's going to happen? Who's going to do it? When does it need to be done by? How are we going to make sure that it happened? And the facilitators at that point then continue to follow through with all the participants to make sure that the things that everyone agreed to are happening as they said that they would. So we don't just close it with the agreement. We continue to follow everybody, make sure that things happen. And then at that point, once we're sure that the agreement's been completed or everybody's satisfied with it, then we report back to the attorneys or the courts. This process is complete. We consider it successful. And at that point, they can dismiss or reduce the charges, whatever they had agreed to do. So we follow the case through the entire process. And then I think it's important to share some words from people who've been through our program, because sometimes it's hard to really feel what's going on with it unless you're hearing from the people who've been through. And so we had one participant in a very serious case. And she wrote to us at the end, that for her, restorative justice transformed her anger, her frustration, her outrage and grief. And she said, now I feel compassion and relief for our family and for the responsible person. So they really were able to kind of understand where one another were coming from. This particular person, we checked in with her a few months later and she said, I just saw him, the responsible person, on the downtown mall, and we hugged and we chatted. And, it was a serious case. And so that for us was a very, important lesson in people being able to make those connections. This is from a youth participant, so a teenager who had been charged with a crime. He said, I liked it a lot because I got to actually talk to the person that I harmed and took something from. And it actually made me feel bad because she has a life and a family to take care of. I think most kids should get a chance to do the program. I really feel like it would change their minds about what they're doing. So again, just realizing that this thing that I thought I did to a piece of property, there's a person connected to that. And there's a person whose life was impacted by what I did. And so that was a really big learning for them. And this is another, a person who had been charged with a crime. He said the facilitators were personable, knowledgeable, and thoughtful. Emphasis was put on reflecting on the incident and how the incident affected the other person, not only how to move on from it, but how to prevent it going forward. I'd already done a lot of reflecting on the situation, but I hadn't considered the harmed person's personal feelings as much as this process influenced me too. So I thought that was beneficial going forward. So again, for folks to really think, you know, how did my actions influence someone else? And research shows that when you have those kind of dialogues, it lowers the recidivism rate or the likelihood that someone would repeat the same behavior again. This is just, I won't read these to you. These are just some examples of research that shows the effectiveness of restorative justice in different studies and communities. There's generally high satisfaction rates, generally reduces symptoms of trauma in people who've been harmed, generally reduces recidivism or reoffending in people who have committed the harm. Right, and making a referral, it's really easy. You shoot us an email and we'll walk you through it. So info@communityjusticeva.org. And we do not have particular criteria, you know, any certain crimes or situations that are definite no's. It's really more about, are these people, is this what the people want to do, right? Is the harmed person willing to have that kind of dialogue or to consider this kind of option? And is the person who committed the harm willing to take accountability and same thing, to have that dialogue? And if people are open to that, then we're open to talking to them about it and seeing if we can help. And that's all the prepared remarks, but anything, would love to have any questions and conversation you guys have.
Can you give us a sense of the volume of cases that you're seeing?
The volume of cases?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, actually. Look at my little report here. So in our first year as a nonprofit, we initiated 20 cases throughout that year, and that represented 64 participants who participated in the program, because some cases will have more than 2 participants. They might have support people or other witnesses, involved people who participate. And we've actually had an increase in referrals just in the last quarter. So we expect to serve more than that in this coming year.
And you have relationships with the Charlottesville police as well as other police organizations and or the prosecutors and.
Correct. Yeah. So right now we mostly get our referrals from the attorneys after someone's been charged. But we've had some initial conversations, kind of letting the police departments know that we're open to taking pre-charge or other types of situations if that's something that they want to do. So we're open to that kind of work if people want it.
It's misdemeanors and felonies?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can be. Yeah. And adults and youth, responsible folks. Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions. Excuse me, online over here. Let me see here. So does the person who was harmed have to initiate the possibility of this process? How does what kind of initiates it? And the other question, I'm kind of curious about the type of staffing you have to kind of make this successful.
The staff, is that what you said? Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds trying to hear an echo.
Yeah.
I can write my question in the chat if you want me to.
I think I got it, but let me know if I didn't catch it. So the first question about who initiates it, it can really be any of the parties. So it might be the responsible person, it might be the harmed person, it might be the prosecutor, it might be the defense attorney, or just, someone else in the community might say to them, hey, you should think of this. Once we hear from any of those parties, then our first thing is to reach out to all of them and say, do all of you want to do this or not? So they kind of have to give an initial approval for us to, start an intake process. And so sometimes it might be the defense attorney saying, I think this would be a great case for restorative justice. And then they contact the prosecutor, and then the prosecutor calls the harm says, what do you think? Are you open to this? And, so everyone has to be on board for it to move forward.
Okay, yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah, this is the second question about staff.
Yeah, because I'm kind of curious. It sounds like the one example you gave, you kind of mentioned how the person felt sort of healed. My kids are talking in the background, but is there a therapist involved in this process too? Kind of worried about that.
Yeah, so we have a pool of facilitators. We've got about 8 facilitators on staff right now, and it's a diverse group. So some folks have experience working in the school system with youth. We've got someone who's, got ministry background, legal background, advocate background, working with sexual harm victims. It's a mix. And as well, we have a mix of folks related to, gender, race, culture, background, so we try to have a diverse group of folks so that we can, make sure each case, the participants are going to have people that they feel comfortable talking to. And then all of our staff go through, of course, training on the front end in restorative justice, but, bring a lot of good skills and experience from previous experiences too.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I can say is that you're many steps ahead of us in terms of, we have a potential to do a mediation program. And so it seems like your organization would be a wonderful partner as we set up this program. So you'll definitely be hearing from us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we know there are a lot of groups in town who do various forms of, bringing people together for dialogue, and we love the idea of, all being in touch, learning together, helping one another. Absolutely.
Are your facilitators volunteers or are they paid staff?
They're paid staff, but they, right now, the co-director and I kind of have steady hours, and the facilitators take cases as needed. Many of them have other jobs, so they may take one case at a time or a few cases at a time. But it's, as needed based on the number of referrals we have coming in.
Okay,
Very good.
thank you very much.
All right. Thank you guys so much for having me. Appreciate
You're
it.
coming.
So, I apologize for that, but what you guys couldn't see behind you, we were having technical issues with the screen going out. So, and apologies to you actually
No
for that.
problem. Made it work.
Okay, so our next item here, we're going to have still planning to have 2 public comment periods tonight. But we have first I don't know whether I should call it a housekeeping issue, but I guess Jeff can explain this resolution relating to our bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a little bit of background, was looking into some of the requirements of our bylaws and realized that there were 4 sets that were on a different timeline, successive timeline, and that they were not consistent. And so I got with the assistant city attorney, Ms. Wimberly, and we've worked over the last few weeks to clean that up. And even though it's implied that the subsequent set would supersede the prior set, that had not been formalized. So what we're gonna offer tonight is a motion to formalize that and make sure that our most recent set of bylaws and operating procedures are the ones that would govern our process in our organization. So if there are no questions about that, I'm going to just read the motion. The board member should have gotten a copy, but I'm going to read it into the record. And then we can have some discussion and hopefully vote on it and hopefully approve it tonight. So
Just before you do that,
Yes.
I just should just explain that this arose from confusion at the city attorney's office. They saw this bylaws document And then now have operating procedures, and the operating procedures did not officially supersede the bylaws from 2019. That's what we're trying to kill.
Yes.
It's those bylaws.
As you know, since we came together as an organization several years ago, our bylaws and operating procedures have been a work in progress. They've evolved. They've evolved with input from the city manager, from the city attorney, and from council. So we're trying to sort of clean all this up and get it current and make sure that it's been formally approved that this version, the current version, supersedes the prior versions. Okay, this is a motion of the Police Civilian Oversight Board dated December 14th, 2023. Whereas the Charlottesville City Council on November 4th, 2019 approved an ordinance adding Article 16 to Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Charlottesville and establishing this Police Civilian Oversight Board, and by resolution approved the bylaws governing the board's internal operations. Whereas since that time, the board, in consultation with outside counsel, Ms. O'Berry, and the city attorney's office, has developed comprehensive operating procedures governing the board's internal operations and the performance of its powers and duties. Whereas those operating procedures were approved by the Charlottesville City Council by resolution on December 19th, 2022. Whereas there are certain inconsistencies between the bylaws and the operating procedures which promotes confusion. Whereas the operating procedures provide all necessary information, procedures, and principles governing the board's internal operations and the performance of its powers and duties. Whereas to promote clarity, the board deems it necessary and beneficial to provide one source of procedures to govern its internal operations and the performance of its powers and duties. Whereas Article 13 of the board's bylaws provides, quote, "These bylaws may be amended by the board. Any proposed amendment must be presented by a board member in writing at a regular board meeting. The board may adopt the amendment at its regular meeting upon an affirmative vote of 4 board members." Whereas the board's operating procedure number 1 permits the board to take any action, including action regarding the bylaws, so long as the action does not exceed its authority expressly set forth within the enabling legislation codified at Virginia Code 9.1-601. Therefore, I hereby move that this Police Civilian Oversight Board rescind, repeal, and permanently extinguish the bylaws in their entirety.
Key point you made was that it takes 4. And we
don't have
4.
Yeah.
So we're done.
Okay.
Still
I was
our
gonna
next-
say,
Yeah, sorry.
without the other members,
No.
I'm sorry, James, go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say that, without Lakeisha and Ms. Turner, Mr. Fleming, I wouldn't want to be voting on anything. And we know that the word bylaw had a long history, so. Yeah, I think we need to be able to have a discussion with the full board. Or a lot closer to the full board anyway.
Yeah, if Mr. Fleming signs on, we could still vote on it tonight. Because we need 4.
4 people, yeah.
But if not, we'll have to put it off till January.
Table it, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
hello, he's on the phone. Hang on a second.
How that works.
If you want me to vote over the phone, I can, but I couldn't log in. The computer went blank, and I don't know what's wrong with it, so I got to turn it in.
Okay,
were you able to hear me, Mr. Fleming, in terms of what the motion that I read?
Yes, I heard just about everything you said.
Okay,
in that case,
I
you,
want to vote on the amendment
Yeah, James, do you have any objection to that?
I'm still leaning on the fact that I'd like I would like an opportunity for the other members. Of course, they had an opportunity to be here, but you know, I'd like them to be here as well. So I'm leaning towards pushing it to January.
Well, I just remember that it has very little effect other than to clarify what our rules are.
James, it basically just cleans things up and as Ms. Wimberly said, just eliminates the confusion that might exist if someone looked back to 2019 instead of 2022. So there's nothing of substance other than that. It's just really cleaning up the bylaws.
Right. And so we're.
Yeah, hang on a second. I have been informed by staff that voting over the telephone is not under Virginia law is not so.
Okay.
So let us table this for now then. And okay.
Apologize for missing, and you know, you can count me absent, I guess. Whatever.
Thank you for trying.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
James, we're gonna table it obviously, but I just wanted to make sure you
Yeah.
were clear on what the motion was intended to do.
Right. So, okay, initially, even going back to about 17, we had the bylaws, right? And then there was some revision to those. And then there's an SOP that's actually been approved.
Yes, the
That's
operating
the revision of the bylaws.
The
Right.
SOP, the new SOP is in the works. That hasn't been produced yet. That's being worked on. This has to do with just our organizational structure and cleaning that up because of the contradictions. Have you looked at those, James, in terms of the successive iterations of that?
In the past, I haven't looked at them recently either, but you know, I know I know it's been a long evolution, you know, and then it's not a surprise that there's been contradictions now between, you know, where they should be, where folks thought they were, and all of that. So, yeah.
Do you have specific concerns? Because I can always get back to Ms. Wimberly.
Yeah, well, we can't.
Let me take a look again, but and again, I'm just, you know, that people grab onto the word bylaw, right, in this process over the last 3 to 4 years, and so the other issue I have is just making sure everybody's kind of here. I know it's not our job to make sure everybody's here, but just want to make sure that, you know, other folks are kind of truly aware and weighing in on it. But I know that we've got things that need to be cleaned up, and I know that the SOP is how we operate. I get all that, and the bylaws.
If you would take another look at it, and if you have a concern, let me know, and I'll get back with the attorney before the January meeting if we need to do. If you have a specific concern, I'll bring it to her and make sure that she looks at it in the context of the motion.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks.
Okay, so this resolution is tabled because we can't vote over the phone.
I got one question.
Sure.
Before you move in further.
Certainly.
On these bylaws, these constitutions or whatever. This thing was dated back November 4th, 2019.
Yes.
So you all are gonna update this.
We're gonna kill that.
You're gonna kill this.
It's already been updated, Mr. Dillard, and yet the other one was never killed.
Okay, so then I think all of the board members ought to have a copy of the new.
Oh, they do.
I don't.
Okay.
Okay, I mean, probably because you're not a voting member, but
Yeah, but I'm still.
We'll send it to you.
sure, yeah, we can get it to you.
All right.
Absolutely. So,
Sorry about that.
yeah, so we'll have, you know, the 2019 bylaws.
Did you get that when it went out this week, the 2019, Ms. Gonzalez sent out?
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll send out the new ones.
We'll send you the new ones as well.
Thank you.
Yep, sorry about that.
Okay. And now our next item of business is public comments, if there are any. And the custom is to take first comments from the audience present. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment at this point? Is there anyone online? Or would you poll, see if there is someone who would like to make a comment or ask a question?
No one online?
Oh, okay, then we're good.
No, sorry, I wanted to give them enough time.
Okay, all right.
Oh, is there people online, the other people online?
We have two attendees.
Oh, okay,
And no hands raised,
thank you.
okay. Still no comments from the audience here, all right. Okay, we can move on then to the executive director's report. Ms. Gonzalez.
I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Keep yourself muted on your laptop. The mic's here.
Let's try that now. Yeah.
How's that? Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah, that's good.
That'll good.
All right, so just for, again, housekeeping, because it's confusing because of all of the documents that are associated with the creation of this board, so that you all understand. So back to what Mr. Diller's question was. So the 2019 version of the city ordinance that was created to create the CCRB, was it not? The
CRB.
or
CRB.
PCRB or whatever the heck it was at the time. These bylaws were associated to that document. So when the current document that we're operating under now, that was, I guess, voted in 2020,
A year ago.
right? They never extinguished the 2019 bylaws, but in the interim, after the ordinance was approved, Bill and the other authors came up with operating procedures. So we keep incorrectly referring to them as SOPs. They're not SOPs, they're operating procedures. And the reason why that's important is because we are in the process of creating SOPs between ourselves and the police department. So we have to make sure all these things are clear. And that's why it was a good idea for me to distribute all of these documents so you all know exactly what it is you're doing. So having said that, anyway. I'll be brief. So Bill briefly mentioned, but we are in the process finally, thank goodness, in full swing with the PCOB management analyst position. It has been posted to the various job boards. Anyone interested in the position can actually go on the city website if they like. They go on LinkedIn, NACO, and fill out the application. And we do already have a couple of applicants in the system, and it's only been out for a few days, so that's in full swing. As the unfortunate result of Susan Crishel's resignation, the PCO board member vacancy has also been posted and is available, and we have at least one applicant for that position. I wanted to just touch briefly on the fact that we're in budget season right now in the city, and we did in fact make our budget presentation to the city council. That went interestingly well, at least in my opinion. I didn't pass out, so and I thought for sure I was. So we also made a budget presentation to the city manager's office, to the city manager himself, and we're in the process now of creating the standard operating procedures for information sharing between ourselves and the police department, so that we can hopefully get back on track. We are also in the process of creating, we're about 50% through the investigator manual. We just started the work on the creation of the audit manual. And let's see. And last week we did in fact meet at the complainant's attorney's request from the review request that we voted on in October. Had a meeting with the complainant and her attorney on Friday. to discuss the findings of the board. It's my understanding that they are now actually seeking additional counsel. And the very last thing is you had one complaint come in to our office, but because of the circumstances that we are currently finding ourselves in, that was forwarded to the CPD. And Chief Conscious has been in communication with me as far as that's concerned. And it's my understanding they are handling it, but I am following up with a complainant on that matter at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I'm sorry, what's happening at 9 o'clock?
I'm gonna be meeting with that complainant.
Oh.
So even though we are not actively able to pursue that investigation ourselves because of the existing circumstances, we're going to enter the information into the portal. We are going to track the investigation, and the chief has been good in terms of communicating with me what has been done thus far on the police department side of it. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for the executive director? Thank you very much. I know it's been difficult under the circumstances trying to get this SOP and get us back on track. Thank you again. Now, the next item that we have here is the request by the executive director for us to comment on the CPD general order related to traffic stops. I've drafted a few comments. I don't know if anyone else has had time to do that, but this will be a good time for us to discuss our impressions. Basically, what the traffic stop, professional traffic stop general order does is it lays out procedures that police are supposed to follow when they engage in traffic stops. And
I'm sorry, can you just speak a little louder?
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so it seems that given that traffic stops can be a major source of complaints related to discriminatory police behavior, this was a good order for us to review. Is there any? You have any particular comment? I mean, I have some reactions to it myself.
Well, my only thought is that I think there's some problem with the point at which they activate the dash cam, because it may miss the alleged infraction. And so it only is activated subsequent to the alleged infraction. And I think that sort of creates problems in terms of the validity of the allegation. So I'll leave it at that.
You know, one of the things that struck me was that it went back and forth between you know, a traffic stop for a busted taillight and a traffic stop, you know, after a long chase with, you know, a dangerous felon. And it seemed to me that those two situations needed to be differentiated and there needed to be sort of a different set of procedures in place for each of those two sets of circumstances. It's also interesting that this particular guidance doesn't actually tell the officer when they should make a stop. I mean, and so the implication is in there that there's discretion and judgment, and but there's nothing that any police officer could hang their hats on, I think, in terms of you know, what, you know, when is it worth stopping this person? When is it worth citing this person, or should I give them a warning? Maybe that's in another general order. I don't know. The other thing is that I thought that a lot of this was couched in sort of warrior language in the sense of you know, you were supposed to aggressively investigate suspicious persons. Well, I don't know, what is a suspicious person? The motorists or the people who are involved in these incidents are called violators or suspects throughout, which is okay, I guess, but maybe motorists would be a better term. Let's see. I have a couple of other things. I agree with Jeff that there is not an instruction that tells the officer to turn on the dash cam as soon as they see a violation. And the reason why that's an issue is because, as I understand it, the dash cam preserves what happened for 30 seconds prior. And so if the dash cam could be turned on at that in that interval, again, that would go a long way to documenting the actual offenses for which someone is being pulled over. I have a question for the executive director. In the subsection 17, it recommends that in order to reduce tension, it might be a good idea to ask the motorists why they committed the violation. You know, sort of, I'm human, I understand. Isn't that Fifth Amendment? I mean, I was hurrying to see my sick grandmother, and then the policeman goes into court and says, well, but he admitted he was speeding. I don't know, maybe not.
We'll leave it as rhetorical for now.
Excuse me?
We'll leave the question as rhetorical for now.
Well, I think that's a comment, yeah, as we finalize our suggestions for this. I have there's about a page of comments which I will forward to the executive director. I would urge folks, the other members of the board to do the same thing. And then, Jeff and I meet with the executive director weekly, and we can finalize over the next month a set of recommendations to actually give to the chief for us to vote on next month.
And I would actually respectfully recommend that you seriously consider trying to get input also from anyone that might be interested from the community that might have, expertise and whatever, like in the question that you had, is that an actual issue legally, for example?
Yeah.
Again, I'm just using that as a hypothetical, but I think maybe we should reach out and try to get some input from the community as well.
Mr. Chair, excuse me. I wonder if Mr. Dillard would share some perspective as a retired law enforcement officer on this question. Mr. Dillard. Not to put you on the spot, you can decline.
I mean, yeah.
I'll decline it.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, and it's easy, to criticize because I think it is understood that the traffic stops can be very dangerous. And so we don't want to be tying the hands of the police or restricting them from doing their jobs or taking care of themselves. But there are ways that the professional stops, which is what this document purports to describe, can be upgraded. So
I know that I'm not supposed to do this, but I have to say,
can we wait for?
well, it's about this. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
just
well,
saying that
I-
the state, okay.
So because we've been, the policy in terms of public comments, we have to do it in a specific order, but write the notes and then definitely stand up and talk about it.
All right.
And I think
Thank you.
I think we're probably reaching the end of our discussion of it, so it won't be long.
Okay, thank you.
So anyone that have any other questions or comments on this issue? Again, if you haven't had time to look at the general order, it's only 2.5 pages.
It's not very long.
So please do it. And you can tell me verbally what your impressions are, or write a few notes. and Jeff and I, and hopefully others will reach out to the public to get some feedback. One of the things that has arisen as we discussed this with the executive director was that, in fact, there's another general order that deals with camera usage. And so it might be that we would come up with sort of a joint, our recommendations might cover aspects of both of these general orders.
The general orders, I cross-referenced the information for you so that you can get perspective, but I would strongly urge you to deal with each general order individually. Remember, we can't dictate to the police department.
Sure.
We can only, so I would take it one general order at a time.
Okay, point taken. And now I think we have time for, now it's time for public comments.
Sorry. So Virginia was, the legislature dealt with some of this. And,
Could you just state your name?
oh, I'm sorry, Susan Perry, citizen of the world. So the law enforcement officer must have reasonable suspicion that a traffic infraction occurred or was committed by the driver. There were, so what happened was that they didn't want traffic stops to be willy-nilly because it starts trouble. And I actually thought that you couldn't stop someone for a light either, for a broken light. And it needs to be so there's a whole, I don't know what the actual law is, but there was a big deal about it and it went through, and then this past session, they wanted to nix it, and luckily the Senate stopped it. So so I think it would be good to look at the actual
Ms.
law.
Perry is talking about pretextual stops.
Pretextual stops.
So I think there should be good to look at the actual Virginia law about that, because
To avoid pretextual stops, that's what we wish to do. Yes.
right. But again, it's against the law to do it according to
Yeah.
Virginia, so I
So
just wanted to put that in. So I need to look at the actual law.
thank you, Ms. Barry.
Thank
You're
you.
very welcome.
Do we have any other comments? Is there anyone online who with a hand up?
I am not seeing any raised hands.
There's a comment here. Ms. McBride.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cameron McBride. I'm a future citizen of the city as of next month. At the moment, I'm a citizen of the county, a couple blocks away from the city limits. I have not actively practiced criminal law a lot in the last few years, but my recollection as of maybe 3 years ago was that police questioning, to your point about Fifth Amendment issue, police questioning before the person is in custody does not implicate the Constitution in that sense. Your Fifth Amendment rights attach to you when you are in custody.
I'll remember that the next time I'm stopped.
There is a lot of writing about how that just doesn't make any sense at all,
fair.
because you
It's
are
not fair.
detained, but you're not in custody. And so there could be a way forward in the future for the courts to remedy that. But my understanding is that right now.
Well, and as I understand it, police to a certain extent are allowed to trick you.
Absolutely, yes.
So, if they trick you into self-incrimination,
But you
Yeah.
require the interrogation and you have to be seized and interrogated, is what she's trying to say to you.
Yes,
You have
okay.
both those factors have to be in play.
To implicate the Fifth Amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or announcements for the good of the board?
Hey, Bill.
Yes,
So something I was thinking of a little while ago when we were talking about the vote that we're going to have tonight. It would be really cool. Although I don't want to sign myself up to do it, but creating an infographic, maybe a one-page PowerPoint that shows a timeline, because I know it's a very simple thing with that vote we were trying to do tonight, but you and I heard the word bylaws a lot for the first couple of years, and so I think an infographic that shows the timeline of like where we were, where we're trying to be, right? And then the terminology, as Inez explained, I was using the word SOP incorrectly. Talking about the SOP we're trying to create with the police department. And then, so that's one thing, right? That word can get misused for that terminology, right? And then there's operating procedures, which is where we're, I guess, at now or trying to improve. I think if we can do a one-page, doesn't have to be a huge book, but just this is where we were, this is where we're trying to be, and these are the terms. So when everybody's together and we have that meeting in January, the folks can see, or before the meeting, but I know folks are going on holidays, but I think it'll simplify it in the public a little bit too, because it's just been a road of a lot of document change over time. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the best things about an infographic like that would be to show that the bylaws attach to the 2018 ordinance, where operating procedures attach to the 2021 ordinance, which superseded the 2018 ordinance, and that will make things very.
Did you mean the 2022, Mr. Chair? It was approved this time last
Well,
year.
that was operating procedures.
Yes.
21 was the ordinance.
Ordinance, yes.
So anyway.
Like 18, we had no teeth, right? Because Northern had on the ordinance side, we had no teeth, and then that impacts the operating procedures or what we were calling bylaws back then. So I think if we can make it bills, Windows for Dummies, user friendly, and then I get it. Everybody's kind of on the same page. Even if they don't agree, at least everybody has the same level of understanding where we've been, where we're trying to get to. Over.
Sure. And it's very ironic because I remember when I came on the board, I think the first resolution that we voted on was to demand that the city council repeal the bylaws.
That's right. The very first meeting.
Because they didn't fit with what the interim board had asked for. But anyway, just a historical.
James.
Yep.
I think it's a great idea. When can you get us a draft of that?
I knew you were going to say that.
We'll look for that.
Unless our executive director could help put that together, that would be helpful. I know she's got a lot on her plate though.
One of the things that I actually learned from Teresa Hepler is there's a great graphics package that's very easy to use in these kind of contexts, and I'll get it done.
Great.
So
you might even be able to get AI to do it. Who knows?
Well, don't laugh. I'm thinking about trying to train AI to understand our operating procedures. I haven't had any success yet. So
wow.
Anyway, hearing no more questions or comments, is there any objection to adjourning the meeting?
None.
Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming. It is 7:30.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays. I don't see you.
Everything.
All
right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Leave it out.
I got a question for both of you all. Will you leave?
Yes.